20 years ago, I left a long-term relationship. It did not end amicably. I discovered he had been cheating. He denied that it qualified as cheating, and you can probably guess how unproductive that discussion was. Quite simply, he turned out not to be the man I thought he was. I was heartbroken and grieved for a long time. I have had no contact with him since we ended things, but life goes on. I picked up the pieces, got my PhD, and met an incredible, wonderful woman to whom I am now married. We have a child, and I can honestly say my family is the best thing in my life. And objectively speaking, the best thing in the universe. I work as a researcher and in a very niche subfield, to the point where the people who collaborate with each other in this subfield can probably be counted on your fingers and toes. It's not unusual for me to get emails from people I've never met asking about particulars of research I've contributed to, especially from young women, who are oftentimes overwhelmed by how many men there are in the field, and feel more comfortable reaching out to another woman. If you are interested in my subfield, which not many people are, it's pretty easy to find me and contact me via the email alias my institution has set up for me. About 1.5 years ago, I received an email from a young woman I didn't know. The email said she was a student at an institution that has several people I've worked with on staff, and that she was interested in research in my field. She asked some fairly standard questions about some research I had contributed to a few years previously. She then said she was the daughter of Quraysh, insert ex-boyfriend's name here, chat, and that he said hello. I honestly wasn't sure what to make of it, and partially thought it was some bizarre joke. And because I was extremely busy at that time, I simply never replied. A few weeks ago, I was attending a small research symposium where a few of my colleagues were presenting their work. I was just there as moral support and for the free coffee and snacks, not to present anything myself. But I was chatting with a few other people I knew who were introducing me to their students, cracking bad jokes about each other's work, etc. I was approached by a young woman who introduced herself, and before I could try and place her name, she mentioned that she was the one who had sent me the email last year. I immediately remembered, because I remembered thinking of her email as bizarre. I tried to remain professional, and the young woman herself was very polite and didn't raise any red flags. But after she talked a little bit about her research interests, she again mentioned that she was insert ex-boyfriend's name, daughter, and that he talks about me all the time. At that point, I had to drop the professional act, said I had work to get to, and since all my colleagues had finished presenting, I just left. I told my wife everything that night. I hadn't told her about the initial email because I figured it was a bizarre one-off, but this made me feel uncomfortable, so I wanted to ask her advice. She initially had the same questions I did about the whole situation. How do I know this person is who she says she is? Etc. And then after thinking about it for a little while, simply said that I should do whatever my gut says. Well, that night I checked my email before going to bed to find that a colleague I frequently collaborate with had sent me an email of introduction for this young woman. The email mentioned, "It looks like you previously worked with her father. It's a small world." Not verbatim, but that's the gist. I met my ex-boyfriend through work and recommended her for a summer research position at my institution. I showed my wife, who raised her eyebrows but didn't say anything, and then set it aside and didn't reply. It's now been a few weeks since then, and the young woman recently emailed me again, asking if she could talk to me about research. No mention of the ex-boyfriend this time. I'm unsure of what to do here. Ignoring her is the simple answer, but the subfield is so small, and she appears to be my colleague's prized student. I don't want to cause any awkwardness in any working relationships if I ignore this. But I also don't want to talk about something that happened in my personal life over 20 years ago. My wife thinks I should just ignore her, and we've talked about what either course of action would look like, replying to this woman or ignoring her, but she's left the decision up to me. I don't know anyone who handled anything like this, so I thought I would seek advice here. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Being that it's such a small field and that you are genuinely interested in bettering circumstances for your female peers, I don't see why you would take any stance other than to treat her as well as you would any other aspiring up-and-comer. I would simply communicate to her that your relationship with her father was not as good for you as he seems to describe it, and that you are willing to help her professionally, but have no interest in revisiting that time in your life or having anything to do with her father going forward. If she wants to know why, it's simply not her business. Keep it professional. It seems she has been led to believe that your relationship had been better than it was. So why wouldn't she try to use that angle to be seen in a good light by you? She's wrong, and that's unfortunate, but not really her fault. She seems to actually be interested in your field, and you are a valuable resource. While it's possible her father pushed her to approach you in this way for his own reasons, to possibly reconnect with you, or to hurt you in some way. But once the record is set straight, without delving into details, I'd hope that she will drop the subject and be professional herself. Comment 2. I honestly think her dad probably just briefly mentioned you because it's pretty niche, and she's trying to take advantage of it to network and make connections. I don't know why you'd ignore her or why you're reading so much into it. I've had random people who are relatives of family friends contact me for work advice and mentioned how they know me. Some definitely make more of the connection than there is because they're trying to advance their career. The poor girl hasn't done anything to you. Now for the update. Thanks for sticking around for the update. So, the situation with my ex's daughter got messier. I decided to reply to her email, thinking I could keep it strictly professional. Big mistake. We set up a meeting to discuss her research, and she was sharp, I'll give her that. But then, halfway through, she drops the news. She's looking for a mentor and specifically wants me. I felt cornered, like I was being played, but I agreed, thinking I could handle it. The next thing I know, she's in my office, papers spread everywhere, and it's like she's moved in. My colleagues start whispering, and I can tell they're connecting the dots between her and my past. I'm kicking myself for not setting boundaries, but it's too late now. Then, one day, she leaves her email open on my computer, and there it is, an email from my ex, thanking her for keeping tabs on me. It's like I've been punched in the gut. I confront her, and she breaks down, admitting she's been reporting back to him all along. I feel betrayed, not just by her, but by myself, for letting this happen. I tell my wife, and she's livid. She wants me to cut ties immediately, but I'm worried about the fallout. I've built a reputation in this field, and I can't afford to have it tarnished by personal drama. But my wife insists, and I know she's right. I tell the young woman she needs to find another mentor, and I brace myself for the backlash. It doesn't take long. My colleague, her actual advisor, confronts me, accusing me of abandoning a promising student over a personal vendetta. I try to explain without getting too personal, but it's clear he doesn't buy it. Rumors start flying, and I can feel the respect of my peers slipping away. In a last-ditch effort to salvage my reputation, I decide to come clean at the next department meeting. I lay it all out, my history with my ex, his daughter's deception, everything. It's humiliating, but to my surprise, my colleagues rally around me. They're appalled by the manipulation and offer their support. It's a small victory, but it feels like a weight has been lifted. Just when I think I can breathe again, my ex shows up at a conference I'm attending. He's all smiles and handshakes, acting like we're old friends. I'm seething inside, but I keep it together for the sake of professionalism. He tries to corner me for a chat, but I shut him down, telling him there's nothing left to say. I thought that would be the end of it, but no. He starts showing up at more events, talking to my colleagues, weaving his way back into my professional circle. It's like he's taunting me, showing me he can still get under my skin after all these years. But then something unexpected happens. One of my oldest colleagues, someone who's been in the field even longer than I have, pulls me aside. He tells me he knows my ex from way back, knows exactly what kind of person he is. He's seen this pattern before, and he's not going to stand for it. He starts spreading the word, and soon enough, my ex finds himself on the outside looking in. He tries to hold his ground, but without support, he's got nothing. It's a strange feeling, watching him finally get a taste of his own medicine. I don't take pleasure in it, but there's a sense of relief that I'm not the only one who sees him for who he is. My colleagues' support is a reminder that I'm not alone, that I've earned my place here through hard work and integrity. Thanks for reading. My fiancé accuses me of neglecting our relationship. for my twin brother. But when I find out about the affair, I make sure they regret every lie with a surprise visit to their lover's workplace and a very public breakup announcement. I don't know what to do, or even if I want to go through with the wedding. Things were going well for us at first. I have had two brothers, a twin and an older one, 26. Since childhood, we have been really close. Our parents were surprised at how well we got along. Brothers doted on me a lot, and I clung to them like a little sister. We were best friends. Then, when we were 12 or 14, our parents got into an accident and passed away, and we were sent to live with our aunt-uncle. We could tell that they didn't really want us, but since we don't really have any other family, they took us in so we wouldn't be in the system. So we spent most of our teenage years being ignored. We relied on each other for emotional support and working through the shattering grief we were feeling now that our parents and great childhood were gone. As the years went on, things became a little more manageable. We were able to function more. We were still close, but life started happening. We got jobs and all went to college, and that's where I met my fiancée. By then, we had stopped talking to aunt, uncle, and brothers, and I were living together on our own. When it came time to introduce my then boyfriend to my brothers, they all got along well. Brothers were happy for me, and boyfriend knew of how much they meant to me, being my only family left. Now that we're engaged and living together, things are still going well. We were still in the same city, so while things have changed, I still have all my loved ones around. But then, a few months ago, my older brother got in an accident. A drunk driver. I'm crying just writing this. Everyone I love keeps leaving. A few days after it happened, I just wanted to be by my twin. I couldn't stop crying. I was paranoid that something might happen to him too. Whenever I'd come home, I noticed my fiancé growing distant from me. He was there when I needed to talk to him, but he wasn't the same. I tried to ask him, but he would just dismiss it, and I barely had energy to even get through the day at that point. Things are just starting to calm down a bit. But a few days ago, after coming home from eating lunch with my brother, he snapped on me. He told me that I'm not acting like I care about him anymore, and that I care more about my brother than our relationship. I don't see that. I'm there with him every night. We live together. I make sure he has something to eat when he comes home from work. He asked me, "Why couldn't you cry to me instead?" Or, "Why couldn't you ask how I was doing?" I just didn't want to burden him too much. He works a demanding job, and that was our brother, so my twin could understand things he couldn't. I tried to talk to him about this, but we got into a huge argument. We both said some hurtful things, and out of nowhere he asks if I would feel the same way if something bad happened to him. In the heat of the moment, I said, I would be devastated, but not as much as if twin died. His face went white. I regretted saying it, but things were so heated, and I feel as if he won't even try to understand me. Why would he even ask me a question like that? Why can't I go and check up on my twin or want to cry to him sometimes? That was our older brother who died. We have no parents, no other family. I can't handle any more of my family dying. I love my fiancé to death, and I want to make things work. But the love I feel for him has plummeted since then. He's been so cold. We've barely spoken to each other these past few days, and I'm not even sure what I would say, or if I've already done too much damage. Please, what do I do? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. When my mother-in-law died a few years ago, my wife was devastated. It hurt me to see her hurt, and she started to pull away and rely on her brothers. I tried to give her space. She didn't realize she was pulling away from me. You might think you were there with your fiancé, but in grief, we don't see things clearly at times. He felt you pulling away when you might not have thought so. Perhaps he has never lost anyone and couldn't understand how you are feeling and was lost on how to help you. Fortunately for my wife and me, we didn't have a blow-up over it, but it seems that both of you said some hurtful things. You and your fiancé need to sit down and work through it, or at least try to. Yes, you are grieving, and he should have more emotional maturity. But what you said to him cut him deep. It's understandable with your losses that you would answer that way. But all he heard was that as his future wife, you care more about your twin. So sit down and talk and see if this relationship can be saved. Comment 2. Why couldn't you ask how I was doing? I'm sorry, but what the frick? He expected you to be following him around asking about his feelings when your brother just died? He sounds breathtakingly selfish, honestly. You've been through deep, soul-shattering trauma, and he seems entirely focused on his own feelings. I can understand wanting to be your shoulder, but an empathetic person will also understand that this is a familial loss that echoes your childhood loss, and that you were clinging to your twin because you were terrified of losing the last of your biological family. What you said was cruel, I won't deny that, but it sounds like it came from a place of him being hurtful first, while you're in the throes of unimaginable grief. If you look at the fullness of your relationship outside of this, is he generally a supportive and unselfish person? When difficult things have happened to you in the past, has he shown himself to be a reliable person to lean on? Now, for the update, thanks for sticking with me here. So, after that whole mess with my fiancé, things took a turn for the worse. My twin, he's always been the level-headed one, but he lost his job. Just like that, no warning. He worked at this company for years, and they let him go because of budget cuts. He was devastated, and I was too. It felt like the world was against us. I was trying to be there for him, but my fiancé, he didn't get it. He thought I was babying my twin too much. Said I should let him handle his own problems, but how could I? We've always been there for each other. It's not like we have anyone else to lean on. Then, my twin started hanging out with some old friends from high school. I didn't trust them, never did. They were always trouble. But he said he needed a distraction, something to take his mind off losing his job. I was worried, but what could I do? I had my own problems at home. One night, my twin didn't come home. I was frantic. I called him, texted nothing. My fiancé just rolled his eyes and told me to go to bed. But I couldn't. I stayed up all night waiting. When my twin finally walked through the door the next morning, he looked like he'd been through hell. He wouldn't tell me what happened, but I knew it was bad. Turns out, he got into a fight. A bad one. The police were involved, and he was looking at charges. My heart sank. We couldn't afford a lawyer, not with everything else going on. But somehow the charges got dropped. I don't know how or why, but they did. I was relieved, but it felt like we were just waiting for the next bad thing to happen. And it did. My fiancé, he'd been acting strange, distant. I thought it was because of everything with my twin, but no. He was having an affair with a coworker. I found messages on his phone, and my world just stopped. I confronted him, and he didn't even deny it. Said he felt neglected, that I was always so focused on my twin and not on us. I was furious, heartbroken. I should have left him right then, but I didn't. I couldn't. Despite everything, I still loved him, and I was scared to be alone. My twin was dealing with his own mess, and I didn't want to add to it, so I stayed. I told my fiancé we'd work through it, but things haven't been the same. He's trying to be more attentive, but I can't forget what he did. Now I'm just stuck. I'm trying to support my twin, trying to fix my relationship, and it's all just too much. I don't know if I'm making the right choices, but I'm doing the best I can. Thanks for reading. My proposal in Japan. After 11 years together turns sour when she hates the ring. So I upgrade it and teach her a lesson about gratitude. I proposed during a photo shoot in Japan after 11 years together. Ahead of time, she gave me guidance saying to get a 1-carat lab diamond and just keep it simple. You know I like simple. Don't spend more than $3,000 because that's a vacation. She even showed rings online and said any of these would work, one of which was basically what I bought her. I went with a 1.5-carat oval with a simple band for $3,800. She was extremely happy and made an Instagram post using the photos. I made a comment about how large and nice someone's ring was that liked her post, and she immediately looked at that person's ring, then deleted the photo that included her own ring and expressed insecurities about the ring. She didn't say she wanted to break off the engagement or anything, but just didn't want to include a photo of the ring online. She also went on to say, "Why didn't you go above and beyond? We've been together 11 years and this is the ring I get? This ring is boring and plain, which is everything I'm not." I was just being modest when I told you what I want and thought that if I told you I didn't want much, you would propose faster because it's already been 11 years. I basically told her she gave me clear instructions and I followed them, and then went to bed. She soon followed and apologized, and after a few words of encouragement, she restored that photo and sent the photo to her coworkers that requested it. A few days passed and she's perfectly happy. This morning I woke up and she was looking at other rings online, saying the band is so skinny. The 2-carat of the same ring was on sale for $500 more. Why didn't they offer that to you? I said, I don't know, but if it bothers you that much, we can exchange it for a 2-carat, and then the ring is still consistent with your existing photos. She responded, I've deleted the photo again, but everyone has already seen it. Then she sort of reiterates what she previously said, but goes one step further and suggests that she would have said no, because she didn't like the ring had there not been a photographer there. At this point, I'm just angry myself, so I lash out and tell her to take a look at herself because she looks repulsive right now. Her response is, then let's break up if I'm repulsive. At this point, I'm just not talking to her. She said something about not going to Osaka Castle, and I ignored her, which pissed her off, and she just told me to make my own way back to Tokyo if I'm not going to talk to her. The truth is, she'll apologize for this very soon and say she doesn't mean it. She's insecure and hot-headed, and she says things she doesn't even mean in her episodes. She's continuously gotten better at controlling her anger in these episodes over my time with her, so it's not like she doesn't recognize she has an issue, but she still gets like this sometimes. Usually it is surrounding her weight. She needs constant validation from me that her weight is under control. She can afford to eat a meal, and she looks good. Then she'll suddenly start feeling insecure about her weight and lashes out at me sometimes, saying I keep telling her it's okay to eat just to make it easier on myself while she gets fat. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. The most charitable way to look at this is that she sounds like she has a lot of pent-up resentment about how long it took you to propose. Now that the moment is here, her insecurities are getting the best of her, and she's self-sabotaging. A proposal in Japan with a $3,800 ring would be an absolute dream come true for many women. You should really be questioning whether you want to marry someone with such poor communication and emotional regulation. Comment 2. She also went on to say, why didn't you go above and beyond? We've been together for 11 years and this is the ring I get? This ring is boring and plain, which is everything I'm not. I was just being modest when I told you what I want, and thought that if I told you I didn't want much, you would propose faster because it's already been 11 years. I'd literally dump her right there on the spot. Now, for the update. Thanks for sticking around. A lot has happened since I last wrote. The next day, she did apologize, just like I knew she would. But the air was still thick with tension. We went to Osaka Castle, and it was like nothing had happened. She was all smiles, taking pictures, acting like the perfect fiancé. But I could tell something was off. She was too quiet on the way back to the hotel, lost in thought. That night she got a message from her coworker, the one who had asked for the ring photo. Turns out, this coworker had been stirring the pot, feeding her insecurities about the ring, saying things like, "You deserve so much more after 11 years." I couldn't believe it. This coworker, who I'd met and thought was a friend, was betraying us both. The next morning, she confronted me, saying she knew I had the money to buy a bigger ring. She accused me of not caring enough to spend more. I was floored. I reminded her of her own words, her request for simplicity. But she was having none of it. She said she felt humiliated, that everyone at work was talking about how small her ring was. It was like a slap in the face. I was angry, sure, but more than that, I was hurt. I realized this wasn't just about the ring. It was about her needing to show off, to prove something to her coworkers. And I was just a pawn in her game. I needed to clear my head. I left the hotel and walked around Tokyo, trying to make sense of it all. When I got back, she was gone. She'd taken her things and left a note, saying she needed space to think. I was alone in a foreign country, with a ring that suddenly meant nothing. I spent the next day wandering, trying to figure out what to do. I realized I couldn't let her coworker win. couldn't let her destroy what we had. I went back to the jeweler and did something I never thought I'd do. I upgraded the ring to a 2-carat diamond, the one she'd been eyeing online. It was a move that would change everything. When she came back to the hotel, she found the new ring on the bed with the note. "I love you, but I won't be made a fool. This is the last time I let anyone come between us." She broke down, crying, apologizing for everything. She confessed that her coworker had been manipulating her, trying to break us up because she had feelings for me. It was a mess. But I stood my ground. I told her this was it. No more games, no more insecurities. If we were going to make this work, it had to be us against the world, not us against each other. We left Japan on a quieter note, the new ring on her finger a symbol of a fresh start. But things were different now. We had to rebuild trust, had to learn to communicate better. It wasn't going to be easy, but I was willing to try if she was. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.